Hello again, Internet. It's me with another Photoshop quick guide, and today we're going to talk about probably my favourite tool in Photoshop, which is curves. And I love curves because they're almost like a multi-purpose tool. It gives you more than one thing, and the reason I've left curves for a couple of episodes, so we've done episodes on levels and selections and other things first, is because hopefully now curves won't seem quite so daunting as if we tackled it first. So we're looking at a picture that I took last year, winter last year, and it's a photo of a Scottish loch in the Highlands of Scotland, and I got really lucky and it was a flat calm, so we got a mirror-like reflection. So that's great. Get to curves, image, adjustments and curves, and you'll get this. And hopefully if you've watched some of the other videos, this might look familiar to you because it looks a little bit like the levels menu, in that we've got this histogram running from left to right, and we know the stuff on the bottom left hand side is dark, our dark shades, and we know the stuff on the right hand side is our light shades. Now curves is a little bit different, because what curves does for you is Photoshop draws a line from the darkest dark in your image to the lightest light in your image, and it's this line that we can play with and control with our image. So if I wanted to make this image darker, what I would do is I would click on the curve on the line at the bottom, in the bottom left hand corner, and I would drag it towards the right, and the image will gradually get darker and darker and darker and darker, as you can see. Conversely, if I was to grab this one and pull it to the left, the image will get lighter and lighter as I change the shape. So what's it doing then? Well, remember what I said, that the histogram's a bit like a graph, and a graph has axes, and along the vertical axes, this one here, you can see at the bottom of the axis it's very black, and at the top of the axis it's very white. Likewise with the horizontal axes, at the bottom it's very dark, and at the end it's very white. So this point here on our graph currently is very, very dark. It's saying I want lots and lots of dark. And what we can do is, by dragging this line up, let's drag it up to the middle. And what we're saying now is, okay Photoshop, I want you to only show in my picture the colours or the shades or the light from halfway up this graph for the darkest bit to up here for the lightest bit. So effectively we're only showing this bit of the graph, and I can make it darker again. Likewise with this axis, I can either drag this one and make it darker, or I could drag this one and make it darker. And obviously what I'm doing is, down here we're dealing with the dark parts of the image, which is the shadows, so we can make our shadows lighter or darker, and here I'm dealing with the lightest areas, so I can make them lighter or darker. So you might be sitting there and thinking, well, why not just use levels, because everything you've shown me is exactly the same as levels, and you're right, it kind of is. What's cool about curves is we can make curves, and remember we've talked a little bit about contrast before, but if you think about what contrast is it's the contrast between the light bits of the image and the dark bits of the image. It's the difference between the two. So if we can exaggerate that difference, the difference between the light bits and the dark bits, we're going to have more contrast in our image, and we can do that with curves really simply. So if I want to boost the contrast on the image that we're looking at, about 2/3 up my line I'm going to click, and you see when I left click on the line I get this little black dot, and that black dot's called an anchor point, and I drag that anchor point up slightly, and I'll make my lighter bits in the mid-tones a little bit lighter. And now what I want to do, about 2/3 down towards the bottom of the image, I'm going to add another anchor point, and guess what, I'm going to make those darker. So as you can see, everything on this side, this side that I'm just dragging into, is darker, and everything on this side is lighter. So I can exaggerate this curve, and I'll increase the contrast dramatically, and too dramatically so it looks stupid. But by making an S shape, and you'll hear on a lot of tutorials and things, make an S-shaped curve. Well, that's what they're talking about, is an S-shaped curve. And you can see I've immediately boosted the contrast. So that's really clever. But what else can it do? Well, you can choose the channels. You can actually do this in levels as well, but I didn't bother showing you because there's not much point. Whereas in this, there's just so much more you can do with it. So here's the blue channel. So this is looking at all of the blues in our image. And what I can do with this image is, this was taken, as you can probably tell because there's snow on the hills, this was taken on a winter's day. If I increase the amount of blue in the image, I can make the image look colder, or if I wanted to, I can make the image look warmer by dragging the curve down the way. So you're probably thinking, well, what's going on there then? Well, obviously I'm increasing the blue channel. When I move it up the way, all we're looking at now is blue. So everything on this side of the line, instead of this being lighter, this is blue. And if you wondered what the opposite of blue was, well, the opposite colour to blue is yellow. And so what I'm doing is, by pulling it this way, I'm increasing the amount of yellow in the image. So you can see there we've got blue and yellow. So I wanted to increase the blue, so there's the blue. Likewise with green, I can increase the amount of green in the image. I can decrease the amount of green in the image. If you're curious about this business of opposite colours, if you go into image adjustments and I think it's colour balance, yeah, there you go, image adjustment colour balance, you can see what I was talking about. So I was playing about with blue and yellow. So what I was effectively doing was this, and what I'm doing there is I'm increasing the amount of blue, and by increasing the amount of blue I'm actually decreasing the amount of yellow that's in the image. So likewise for green and magenta, I can increase the amount of magenta in the image, but I'd be decreasing the amount of green. And for red, it's cyan. So increase the red, decrease the cyan. Increase the cyan, decrease the red. So and curves works exactly the same way. But I think I like it because it's so visual. It's so obvious what you're doing. So again, back into blue, I want to make the image a bit more blue. And I also want to increase the contrast, and I'll do that globally. So I'll do it for red, green and blue. And I'll just raise that line slightly and lower it slightly there to make that S curve that we were talking about. So I hope that was useful. That's curves kind of in a nutshell. It does have an auto button, so you can just click the auto button, but what auto tends to do is just correct your exposure. It doesn't really do anything more than that, whereas doing it this way increases the contrast and enables you to do a lot more. So I hope that was useful. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers.